Hello, I'm Mira Frisch from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and I'm here at D'Addario today to talk to you about how to bow on the cello. And hopefully you've already watched the video on how to make a proper bow hold. You need to do that first before you're going to be able to follow this video. So I have my beautiful bow hold that I made using all my steps, and I'm just resting the bow on my knee. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to lift the bow in the air, and I'm going to set my bow near the frog, right at the end of my metal winding. I'm going to just set the bow on the D string, and notice how I'm setting the bow about midway between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge, but probably a little closer to my fingerboard to start. And when I set the bow, the first thing I'm going to do is actually just drop my shoulder to make sure that I've got my arm weight in the string. And the second thing I'm going to do is make sure that I'm pouring my hand. I'm imagining that below my bridge is a glass of orange juice, and I'm holding a pitcher and pouring with my whole arm a glass of orange juice right here under my bridge. It's really important that your hand is tilted like that to the side so that I can add a little bit of arm weight and pressure from the side of my first finger. And notice that my palm is going to be just slightly tilted towards the side. And also, my elbow is just at the right height to play on the D string. We don't want an elbow that's too high or too low. And so you can imagine a little car driving all the way downhill down my arm, all the way downhill, okay? And notice that my elbow is pretty bent, and my wrist also has a bend in it, okay? And so the first thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna just rest my arm weight on the string, and I'm gonna see if I move the upper part of my arm, leading from just above the elbow. If I move back and forth just a little tiny bit, very slowly, I can actually get my string to wiggle very slowly. And it's okay if you make a little squeak like I did, but basically we don't want to make any noise, we just want to wiggle. And then eventually we're going to take our heavy right arm and we're just going to move it to the side just slightly. So we're going to wiggle and go. And I want you just to go a few inches, and at this point I want you to drop your arm weight in the string. Make sure that shoulder comes back down to the proper position. Always check to make sure your thumb is gently bent and not squeezing. Make sure all your fingers are in the proper position on the bow like we talked in the last video. And you're going to wiggle here again. That tells you that your arm weight is in the string and that you're ready to bow properly. And then I want you to take an up bow. Now we can just go back and forth on the D string. Wiggle, go, wiggle, go. Notice at the end of my strokes, I'm not lifting the bow from the string. I'm immediately resting on the string so I can get my next wiggle and go. And you want to practice that many times on the D string until you're very comfortable. Once you're comfortable on the D string, you can actually drop your right elbow and get a little extra bend in your elbow and in your wrist to keep the bow nice and parallel to the bridge. You always want to check for that. And we can do another wiggle and go on the G string. Make sure your wiggles are nice and slow and that you're always remembering to make sure your shoulder is relaxed. We can go to the C string. On the C string, I'm going to have an even bigger bend in my wrist here and an even bigger bend in my elbow, and my elbow is going to be quite low. And when I wiggle and go on the C string, I have to remember that the C is such a thick string that I can't bow too fast or the string won't speak. So wiggle and gently bow. Wiggle and gently go back. And finally, I'm going to roll to the A string. And when I come to the A string, in order to ensure that my bow is parallel to the bridge, I need to open my wrist and my elbow more than any other string. And I'll do my wiggle go here. And there you're set. Now I would practice setting the bow just at the edge of your winding and practice rolling that heavy arm. You can stop at any point and check your wiggle, but I would roll your arm from string to string to practice keeping the bow parallel to the bridge at the frog where you're going to begin your wiggle and bow exercises, and make sure that your wrist is quite bent right here and your elbow quite bent on the C string, and that as you raise your elbow to come to each new string, we open the elbow and wrist slightly. So I hope you found that helpful. And in the next video, we're actually going to learn how to play a little bit more extensively with the bow.